Imagine Warren Buffett wakes up tomorrow morning, walks to his computer, and logs into his bank account only to find a balance of exactly $0. No billions in Berkshire Hathaway stock, no private jets, no massive corporate boardrooms, and no legendary reputation. He is 80 years of age, sitting in a rented studio apartment with nothing but a cheap laptop, a smartphone, a reliable internet connection, and $500 left in his pocket from a part-time retail job. If you ask the average financial advisor what a person in this position should do, they will give you the same generic, outdated script you've heard 1,000 times. They will tell you to cut back on your morning coffee, download a budgeting app, put $50 a month into a traditional savings account, and hope that compound interest saves you by the time you reach 95. But if the greatest investor in human history followed that traditional advice, he would remain broke for the rest of his life. He knows a fundamental truth that the modern matrix tries desperately to hide from you. You cannot save your way out of a $0 trap, and you cannot outrun systemic inflation with a traditional paycheck. The economic landscape of 2026 is entirely different from the world where Buffett bought his first stock. Today, the financial system is rigged to extract value from regular labor through invisible currency debasement, while assets like real estate and premium equities are artificially pumped out of reach by massive central bank credit creation. If you try to play this game by the old rules, you are mathematically guaranteed to stay on the financial hamster wheel forever. So what would Warren Buffett actually do if he had to start completely from scratch today? He wouldn't buy a single stock, he wouldn't invest in an index fund, and he wouldn't look at real estate. Instead, he would deploy an aggressive, highly calculated day-one survival blueprint, engineered to exploit the hidden mechanics of the modern digital economy. Before we break down the exact mathematical steps of that blueprint, welcome back to Classy Wealth. If you are tired of generic financial advice that keeps you stuck, and you are ready to learn how the matrix of money actually operates through clear, high-retention storytelling, you are in the right place. The YouTube algorithm is currently tracking this channel to see how fast viewers engage, so if you are serious about building true financial sovereignty and breaking your own loops, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Do it within these first few minutes to signal the algorithm that this content matters. Now, let's look at Warren Buffett's day one reality. The first thing Buffett would realize on day one is that his greatest asset is not money, it is his internal architecture. He famously coined the concept of the Omaha Blueprint, which states that your earning capacity is entirely determined by your ability to find asymmetries in the marketplace. When you have $0, your immediate problem is a severe lack of cash flow. Cash flow is the oxygen of financial survival. Without it, you cannot invest, you cannot build, and you cannot protect yourself from the rising costs of survival. To generate immediate cash flow without capital, Buffett would look for what economists call information arbitrage. In the digital age, value has shifted away from physical commodities and directly into the aggregation of attention and specialized knowledge. He wouldn't waste his time applying for low-wage corporate jobs where his income is strictly capped by the hours he logs. Instead, he would scan the internet to find businesses that have great products but terrible communication strategies. He would look for local companies, digital brands, or independent creators who are bleeding revenue simply because they do not know how to position their offer to the modern consumer. Buffett would spend his first 48 hours conducting intense, deep-dive research into one specific high-ticket industry, whether it's commercial real estate brokerage, supply chain logistics, or digital media distribution. He would study the competitive landscape until he understood the pain points of that industry better than the business owners themselves. Then, using his cheap laptop, he would reach out to these companies with a highly specific, no-risk proposition. He wouldn't ask for a salary. He would say, "I will fix your client acquisition system for free, and I only want a 20% cut of the new revenue I bring into your business." This is the ultimate asymmetry. By taking zero upfront payment, he eliminates the barrier to entry. But by anchoring his reward to a percentage of revenue, he creates an uncapped income stream backed entirely by his own efficiency. While regular people are busy consuming content, scrolling through mindless feeds, and spending their remaining cash on liabilities to look wealthy, Buffett would be running this arbitrage model like a machine. Within 90 days, his $500 would multiply into a highly consistent, high-margin monthly cash flow stream of $10,000 to $15,000. But this is where the real trap catches most middle-class workers. The moment the average person starts making $10,000 a month, they immediately fall victim to lifestyle inflation. They buy a premium car lease, move into a high-end luxury apartment, start eating at expensive restaurants, and put their remaining cash into a traditional bank account, thinking they have made it. They think they are rich, but they have simply traded a low-income cage for a high-income golden cage. They are still entirely dependent on their daily labor to maintain their new status markers, leaving them completely vulnerable to the next economic shock. Warren Buffett would do the exact opposite. He would continue living in that cheap studio apartment, eating simple meals, and keeping his personal living expenses down to an absolute bare minimum. He understands that every single dollar spent on a liability is a soldier lost from his financial army. He wouldn't accumulate cash in a traditional savings account either. He knows that holding cash in a fractional reserve banking system is a slow financial suicide. With inflation eroding the real purchasing power of the dollar, cash is a melting ice cube designed to lose value over time so that the central authorities can fund their deficits on the backs of regular savers. Once his arbitrage business crosses a critical threshold of liquidity, Buffett would initiate phase 2 of the blueprint, moving out of the labor loop and directly into the asset accumulation phase. But he wouldn't buy traditional stocks just because a chart looks pretty. He would look for businesses that possess what he calls a structural economic moat. A moat is an unassailable competitive advantage that protects a company from inflation, competition, and technological disruption. In the modern era, the strongest economic moats are found in companies that control critical infrastructure or digital real estate that society cannot function without. Think of companies that control global payment processing networks, data storage hubs, or proprietary logistical algorithms. These companies don't care if the price of oil spikes or if consumer spending drops. They collect a microscopic toll on every single digital interaction that occurs across the globe. They are the digital toll booths of the modern empire. Buffett would systematically dump every single dollar of his excess cash flow from his arbitrage business into these high-moat, cash-flowing assets. He wouldn't check the daily stock market charts, and he wouldn't care about short-term price fluctuations. He understands that price is what you pay, but value is what you get. By acquiring ownership stakes in businesses that have pricing power, meaning they can raise their prices to match inflation without losing clients, he effectively protects his purchasing power from the central bank's printing presses. As the currency degrades, the nominal price of his infrastructure assets naturally scales upward, allowing him to multiply his wealth across time, while the middle class watches their savings dissolve. The final, ultimate layer of the Warren Buffett blueprint is the transition from simple asset ownership to offensive leverage. The middle class uses debt to buy liabilities that drain their wallets, like credit cards for vacations or high-interest loans for luxury vehicles. They pre-sell the future hours of their lives to the banks just to maintain the temporary illusion of success. The elite use debt exclusively as an offensive weapon to acquire more cash-flowing assets. Once Buffett's asset portfolio reaches a self-sustaining scale, he wouldn't sell his shares to buy things. Selling assets triggers massive capital gains taxes, which is another mechanism the system uses to penalize wealth accumulation. Instead, he would borrow against his asset portfolio at low interest rates, using his appreciating infrastructure shares as collateral. He would take that newly borrowed untaxed credit and immediately deploy it to purchase even more cash-flowing assets, creating a compounding feedback loop where his wealth expands exponentially faster than the interest on the debt can accrue. This is how the greatest financial minds play the game. They don't trade their time for money, they don't save paper currency, and they don't seek validation through material status symbols. They focus entirely on acquiring structural control over real assets, using math as their shield and cash flow as their fuel. The 2026 Matrix is designed to keep you distracted, broke, and dependent on a system that is actively devaluing your effort. But once you understand the core mechanics of leverage, arbitrage, and economic moats, you can step off the treadmill entirely. The choice before you is simple. You can continue following the traditional advice that guarantees financial stagnation, or you can start executing the mathematics of the elite to build your own exit strategy. If you are ready to stop being a passive participant in a rigged financial game and want to keep decoding these deep dive money truths every single week through cinematic animated stories, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and welcome to the Classy Wealth family. I will see you in the very next story.